I was 8 when my foster sister poured boiling gold on my head. Not by accident. Not during an argument. Not because she lost control. She did it slowly. Carefully. Like she wanted the pain to last long enough for me to remember it forever. I still remember the sound before I remember the pain. The crackling fire beneath the furnace. The metal ladle scraping against the pot. The soft footsteps of servants backing away so they would not get involved. No one tried to stop her. No one even spoke. That was the first lesson I learned inside the Bloodcrest Pack. Silence keeps people alive. The gold touched my skin one drop at a time. And then came the screaming. Mine. The kind of screaming that tears through your throat until your body forgets how to breathe. I fell onto the stone floor while the smell of burned flesh filled the kitchen. Some of the servants looked sick. One of them started crying quietly. But Princess Marcy only stared at me. Smiling. Calm. Proud of what she had done. Because I was the orphan girl. The stray they dragged into the pack house years ago. The wolfless child nobody wanted near their own pups. They called me cursed long before I even understood what the word meant. Half-blood. Broken. Unwanted. The girl with no wolf. The girl who should not have survived. And maybe that was the real reason Marcy hated me. Because no matter what they did, I kept surviving. At 10, she forced me to stand over burning coal until the bottoms of my feet split open. At 12, she locked me outside during winter storms while the others slept near the fire. At 14, the pack children stopped touching me because Marcy convinced them my blood carried death. And every single time I begged for help, the alpha chose her. Always her. I can still hear his voice. Cold. Heavy. Certain. She is a cursed wolfless slave. The room went silent after that. Not shocked. Not confused. Just accepting it. Like my fate had already been decided long before I was old enough to understand it. And after that day, the punishments became worse. Because once people believe you are less than them, they stop seeing pain when you bleed. Years passed inside that castle. Years of bruises hidden beneath servant dresses. Years of scrubbing blood from marble floors. Years of pretending the hunger inside me was not changing. That was the strange part. The part one never told anyone. Sometimes, late at night, I heard things no human should hear. Footsteps beneath the walls. Breathing inside empty rooms. Claws dragging across stone long after midnight. At first I thought the castle was haunted. Then I thought I was losing my mind. But eventually, I realized something far worse. Whatever was hiding in the darkness was listening to me too. And every full moon, it came closer. I tried to ignore it. Tried to stay invisible. That is how servants survive in wolf territory. You lower your eyes. You obey quickly. You never become important enough to notice. But the night Alpha Daemon entered our territory, everything changed. I heard his arrival before I saw him. Howls rolled through the mountains like thunder. The entire pack house became restless. Servants whispered in corners. Warriors straightened their uniforms. Even Alpha Edward looked nervous. That terrified me more than anything. Because men like Alpha Edward feared no one. Then his name spread through the castle like smoke. Alpha Daemon. Leader of the Dark Howlers. The most feared alpha in North America. They said he once killed 3 rogue alphas in a single night. They said entire packs surrendered without war after hearing he was coming. They said no woman could hold his attention for long because something inside him was always angry. Always hungry. No Luna. No weakness. No mercy. Princess Marcy wanted him immediately. Of course she did. Marcy collected powerful things the same way other people collected jewelry. And Alpha Daemon was power wrapped in skin and bone. But the moment his convoy crossed into our territory, something happened to me. Something impossible. I was on my knees scrubbing blood from the kitchen floor when it started. A sharp pain beneath my ribs. Then heat. Then pressure. Like something buried deep inside my body had suddenly opened its eyes. I froze. The rag slipped from my hands. For years there had been nothing inside me. No wolf. No bond. No shifting. Just emptiness. So why did my heartbeat suddenly sound wrong? Why could I hear distant growls outside the castle walls? Why did the scent of pine, smoke, and rain suddenly fill my lungs so strongly it almost hurt? And why? For the first time in my life, did I feel afraid of myself? That night the chains beneath the castle started rattling again. Slowly. Metal scraping against stone. Back and forth. Back and forth. Like something massive was moving in the dark. Waiting. Breathing. Hungry. And somewhere beyond those walls, Alpha Daemon lifted his head like he had caught a scent carried by the wind. My scent. I did not understand it then. I did not understand why my body trembled every time his name was spoken. I did not understand why the full moon suddenly felt closer. Or why the nightmares became more violent after his arrival. But years later, when people asked where the destruction truly began, I always told them the same thing. It began the moment Alpha Daemon stepped into Bloodcrest territory. Because that was the night my wolf woke up hungry. The strange thing about fear is that eventually, your body learns how to live beside it. That was how I survived inside the Bloodcrest Pack. Not by fighting. Not by escaping. But by becoming small enough to overlook. By 16, I knew every sound inside that castle. The heavy boots of warriors returning before dawn. The soft rustle of servant uniforms in the kitchen halls. The way Princess Marcy's heels clicked faster whenever she was angry. And the silence. The silence was always the worst part. Because silence inside Bloodcrest usually meant someone was about to suffer. Most nights, that someone was me. The Bloodcrest Pack territory sat deep inside the northern mountains, hidden behind forests so thick sunlight barely touched the ground beneath them. Outsiders called the castle beautiful. They should have seen it at night. The stone walls trapped cold like a living thing. Long hallways stretched through the packhouse like tunnels inside a grave. The torches burned low after midnight, throwing shadows across portraits of dead alphas whose eyes seemed to follow you while you walked. I cleaned those halls every morning before sunrise. Head lowered. Hands shaking from exhaustion. Trying not to exist. The servants never spoke to me unless necessary. Some feared Marcy. Others believed the rumors. That I carried cursed blood. That my mother came from a disgraced bloodline. That something went wrong the night I was born. I heard all the stories eventually. Children whispered them when they thought I could not hear. She doesn't have a wolf. My father said her scent feels wrong. Don't touch her. They say cursed wolves kill their own pack first. At first, those words hurt. Later, they simply became background noise. Like wind against windows. Like chains dragging across stone. Like the strange heartbeat I kept hearing when nobody stood near me. That heartbeat started when I was 13. Slow. Heavy. Too deep to belong to a human. The first time I heard it, I woke in the middle of the night gasping for air. Thump. 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 It echoed through my room like something alive stood beside my bed. I searched everywhere. Nothing. No one. But the sound continued. Slow enough to terrify me. Close enough to feel real. I stopped sleeping after that. Because every time I closed my eyes, the dreams came back. Flashes of teeth. Snow stained red. A massive wolf running through dark trees. Golden eyes staring straight at me before I woke up sweating. At first I thought the nightmares belonged to trauma. That was what the healers called it whenever servants broke down crying after punishment. Trauma. Fear. Weakness. But there were things in those dreams I could not explain. Smells. Cold air. Wet earth beneath running paws. The sound of distant howls echoing through mountains I had never seen before. Dreams should not feel real. Mine always did. And somehow, they became worse whenever the full moon approached. I tried hiding it. Inside Bloodcrest, weakness attracts cruelty the way blood attracts wolves. Especially Marcy. Princess Marcy never needed reasons to hurt people. She enjoyed control too much. As children, the other pack members followed her because they feared becoming her next target. As she grew older, that fear only deepened. Beautiful people often hide ugliness better than anyone else. Marcy knew exactly how beautiful she was. Long silver blonde hair. Perfect posture. A smile capable of fooling strangers within seconds. Future Luna of Bloodcrest. The pack adored her. Or pretended to. The truth was harder to see unless you lived close enough to hear the things she whispered when nobody else listened. You should be grateful we let you stay here. You look disgusting when you cry. No alpha would ever claim something broken. Sometimes she sounded amused while saying it. Other times, angry. Like my existence itself offended her. I never understood why. Until years later. Until I learned what Alpha Edward had hidden from everyone. But back then, I only knew survival. Every morning began the same way. Wake before dawn. Prepare fires. Wash floors. Avoid eye contact. Do not speak unless ordered. And above all, never make Marcy angry. I failed that last part often. Sometimes it happened because I moved too slowly. Sometimes because I accidentally looked at her too long. Sometimes because she simply woke up wanting pain. One winter morning she ordered me to clean the outer courtyard during a snowstorm. The stones were covered in ice. My fingers turned numb within minutes. But she kept watching from the balcony above. Smiling while snow buried my shoes. I remember looking up at her and wondering something I had never dared ask before. What if monsters are born inside palaces too? That was the exact moment the strange scent hit me. Pine. Smoke. Rain. Strong enough to stop me completely. I looked around the empty courtyard, confused. Nothing stood nearby. No warriors. No travelers. No unfamiliar wolves. Still, the scent remained. My pulse quickened instantly. Not fear. Something else. Something deeper. My body reacted before my mind understood it. Heat spread beneath my skin. The same heat I felt the night Alpha Daemon arrived. Except this happened weeks earlier. That was when I started realizing something terrifying. My senses were changing. I could hear conversations through closed doors. Smell blood before anyone else noticed it. Sense emotions in crowded rooms without people speaking. But none of it made sense. Wolfless humans could not do those things. And yet, I was. One evening, while cleaning the western hallway, I overheard two older servants whispering near the staircase. She survived too much. The old healer warned the Alpha years ago. You think she knows? Impossible. The suppression should have killed it completely. Killed what? Before I could move closer, both servants suddenly stopped talking. Then slowly turned toward me. Terrified. Not angry. Not annoyed. Terrified. Like they had just realized I heard every word. That look followed me for days afterward. And the closer the full moon came, the worse everything became. The headaches. The dreams. The heartbeat. Sometimes my hands shook so violently I dropped dishes while serving dinner. Other times I caught myself staring at raw meat too long inside the kitchens. Hungry. Always hungry. One night I woke with dirt beneath my fingernails and mud across my bedroom floor. I had no memory of leaving my room. No memory of opening the window. No memory of claw marks carved into the wooden wall beside my bed. I stared at those marks until sunrise. 4 deep slashes. Too large for human fingers. My breathing became uneven. Because deep down, I already knew. Something inside me was waking up. And whatever it was, it had been trapped for a very long time. That same night, the castle lost power during a storm. Torches died one by one across the lower halls. Wind rattled the windows hard enough to shake the walls. Most servants stayed hidden in their rooms until morning. But I heard it again. The growling. Low. Deep. Beneath the castle. At first I thought thunder caused it. Then it came again. Closer this time. Not outside. Underneath me. I slowly stepped into the hallway barefoot, heart hammering against my ribs. The sound continued. A growl dragging through darkness beneath the stone floors. Followed by chains. Heavy chains. Something moved below the castle. Something alive. And for the first time in years, the sound did not scare me. It recognized me. The first time Princess Marcy tried to burn the curse out of me. I was 10 years old. And the entire pack came to watch. I remember the smell before I remember the fear. Smoke. Ash. Hot iron. The training grounds sat behind the main castle walls, surrounded by tall black pillars carved with ancient wolf markings. Warriors usually trained there at sunrise. That morning, however, the grounds looked different. Crowded. Servants lined the edges silently. Young wolves whispered among themselves. Even elders stood near the upper platform watching with unreadable expressions. I should have realized then that this was never punishment. It was entertainment. Snow covered the mountains beyond the walls, but the center of the training grounds burned with rows of glowing coal pits. Heat twisted through the freezing air in violent waves. And standing beside those fires was Princess Marcy. She wore white fur around her shoulders and looked almost beautiful beneath the morning light. Almost. Because beauty loses something when cruelty lives behind the eyes. I stood barefoot at the center of the grounds wearing a thin servant dress already stained with soot. My hands trembled so badly I could barely keep them at my sides. Marcy smiled the moment she noticed it. "You're afraid," she said softly. The crowd chuckled. I lowered my eyes immediately. Inside Bloodcrest, fear was weakness. And weakness attracted wolves. Marcy stepped closer until I could smell her perfume beneath the smoke. Sweet. Sharp. Expensive. "You should be," she whispered. Then she turned toward the crowd dramatically. "As future Luna," she announced, "it is my duty to protect this pack from corruption." More murmurs spread through the audience. I felt every eye land on me. "She carries cursed blood," Marcy continued. "The healers have warned us for years." Lie. But nobody questioned her. Nobody ever questioned the future Luna. "She survives things no human should survive," Marcy said. "So today, we will let the fire decide what she truly is." A strange silence followed those words. Even now, years later, I still remember how the wind suddenly stopped moving. Like the mountains themselves were listening. Marcy pointed toward the burning coal path. Nearly 20 feet long. Glowing red beneath layers of ash. Heat rolled from it so intensely my skin hurt before I even stepped closer. "You will carry coal from one end to the other," she said calmly. My stomach dropped. Barefoot. I looked up before I could stop myself. The crowd watched silently. Warriors. Servants. Elders. Nobody moved. Nobody objected. That was when I understood something terrifying. Not one person there believed I deserved mercy. Marcy's smile widened. "If the fire accepts you," she said, "perhaps the curse is weaker than we feared." The crowd laughed again. I felt my pulse pounding harder now. Too hard. Too deep. Thump. 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 That strange heartbeat again. For 1 second, I thought someone stood behind me. I turned quickly. No one. Still. The feeling remained. Like unseen eyes watched from somewhere far below the earth. Marcy snapped her fingers impatiently. "Move." 2 warriors dumped burning coal into a heavy iron bucket and shoved it toward me. The heat instantly blistered my fingers when I grabbed the handle. Pain shot through my arms. I nearly dropped it. The crowd leaned forward. Waiting. Watching. Hoping. I took the first step onto the burning path. Agony exploded through my feet immediately. The sound that left my throat barely sounded human. The coal hissed beneath my skin. Every instinct screamed at me to run. But there was nowhere to go. The second step hurt worse. Then the third. Then the fourth. The smell hit next. Burning flesh. Mine. I heard someone whisper nearby. She should already be collapsing. Another voice answered quietly. Look at her feet. I forced myself not to look down. If I saw the damage, I knew I would break. Marcy circled slowly beside the path like she was inspecting an animal. Interesting, she said loudly. Still standing. The crowd murmured uneasily now. Because something was wrong. I should have been unconscious. Maybe dead. Instead. My body kept moving. Pain tore through me with every step, but somewhere beneath that agony, something else stirred. Heat. Not outside me. Inside me. Growing stronger the longer the fire touched my skin. And then came the smell again. Pine. Rain. Smoke. So strong this time it made my chest tighten. My head snapped upward. No forests nearby. No storms coming. Still. I could smell it clearly. And mixed within it. Wolf. A deep growl suddenly echoed inside my ears. Not around me. Inside me. I stumbled violently. The bucket tipped. Burning coal spilled across my arms and chest. The crowd gasped. I screamed and dropped to my knees. This should have ended it. It should have destroyed me completely. But instead, the strangest thing happened. The pain lessened. Not immediately. Not fully. But enough to notice. The fire still burned. My skin still blistered. Yet something beneath my flesh seemed to fight back against the heat itself. Like my body refused to surrender. Fear spread across several faces in the crowd now. I saw it clearly. Because people stop enjoying cruelty the moment it becomes unnatural. Marcy noticed too. Her confidence flickered for the first time. Get up, she snapped. I could barely breathe. Sweat poured down my face. My vision blurred from heat and exhaustion. Still. I stood. Slowly. Shaking violently. But standing. The crowd went completely silent. That silence frightened me more than the punishment. Because Bloodcrest only became silent when something impossible happened. I looked down at my feet finally. The skin should have melted completely. Instead, the burns already looked wrong. Healing. Not fully. Not normal. But changing too quickly. A cold chill moved through my chest despite the fire around me. No. No, no, no. That could not be happening. Wolfless humans did not heal like wolves. Marcy saw it too. I watched the color drain from her face for half a second before anger replaced it. She's hiding something, she hissed. But before she could continue, another voice interrupted from the crowd. An elder. Old enough that even warriors respected him instantly. Elder Rowan. He rarely attended punishments. Yet there he stood at the edge of the training ground staring directly at me. Not cruelly. Not angrily. Worried. And beneath that worry. Fear. Real fear. His eyes lowered slowly toward my burned feet. Then toward the coal still glowing around me. Finally, he whispered something so quietly I almost missed it. It survived. Marcy turned sharply. What did you say? The elder looked at her for a long moment before answering. Nothing. But I knew he lied. Because his eyes never left me afterward. Not once. That night the servants locked me inside my room without food. Probably expecting me to collapse from infection before morning. I curled beneath the blankets shaking from fever while rain hammered against the castle windows. Every inch of my body hurt. Especially my feet. But exhaustion eventually dragged me into sleep. And that was when the dreams returned. Only this time. They felt closer. I saw dark trees rushing past me. Snow scattering beneath massive paws. Breathing. Heavy breathing. Then blood. So much blood. A roar exploded through the forest loud enough to shake the ground beneath me. I woke up gasping. My room was dark. Cold. Silent. For several seconds I could not move. Then I noticed the mattress. Ripped open beside me. 4 deep claw marks stretched across the fabric. Fresh. My breathing stopped. Slowly. I lifted my trembling hands into the moonlight. My fingernails were cracked. And beneath them, dried blood waited in the shadows. I should have understood the truth after the coal test. I should have realized nobody survives that kind of pain unless something inside them refuses to die. But when you spend years being told you are worthless, hope becomes dangerous. And dangerous things get people hurt. Especially inside Bloodcrest. The morning after I woke beside those claw marks, I wrapped strips of cloth around my feet and forced myself back to work before sunrise. Because servants who miss duties get punished. Servants who question things disappear. And servants who scare the pack become targets. I tried convincing myself the claw marks were impossible. Maybe I scratched the mattress while feverish. Maybe the burns damaged my mind. Maybe exhaustion was finally breaking me apart. That explanation lasted until I saw the floor beneath my bed. Mud. Fresh mud. Tracked from the window all the way to the mattress. My chest tightened immediately. I lived on the 3rd floor of the servant wing. No human could climb that wall during a storm. And yet, something had entered my room. Or left it. I stopped breathing for a moment as another memory surfaced. The dream. Running through snow. The feeling of claws tearing into frozen earth. The sound of heavy breathing that matched my own heartbeat perfectly. No. I shoved the thought away instantly. Thinking too deeply inside Bloodcrest was dangerous. Questions led to punishment. Punishment led to pain. And pain always found me eventually. That afternoon, Princess Marcy summoned every servant to the eastern courtyard. Nobody spoke while we gathered. The atmosphere felt wrong. Heavy. The warriors stood unusually close to the walls with weapons at their sides. Elders whispered among themselves. Several pack members stared openly at my bandaged feet. Word about the coal test had spread. Bloodcrest loved gossip almost as much as cruelty. Marcy stood beside the fountain dressed in silver again, her posture perfect as always. But there was something different about her expression today. Tension. Her smile looked sharper. Less playful. Like something beneath her calm surface had started cracking. The moment her eyes found me, that smile returned. Cold. Controlled. Terrifying. There she is, Marcy announced loudly. Every head turned toward me instantly. I lowered my gaze. Come here. My body obeyed before my mind could think. I walked slowly across the courtyard while whispers followed behind me like insects crawling beneath skin. That's the cursed girl. She survived the fire. Look at her feet. Something's wrong with her. I stopped several feet away from Marcy and bowed my head immediately. She circled me slowly while the crowd watched. Then suddenly, she grabbed my jaw hard enough to force my face upward. Gasps spread through nearby servants. Because everyone could see it now. The burns were healing too quickly. Not normal. Not human. Fear flickered through Marcy's eyes for half a second before anger swallowed it completely. You lied to this pack, she said softly. I blinked in confusion. My lady? You pretended to be weak. The crowd shifted uneasily. I don't understand. Her hand cracked across my face before I finished speaking. Pain exploded through my cheek. You survived because of the curse inside you, Marcy snapped. The whispers grew louder immediately. Curse. Monster. Half-blood. Dangerous. I tasted blood inside my mouth while trying to stay standing. Then Marcy did something worse. She smiled at the crowd. As future Luna, she said, I can no longer ignore the danger she represents. Panic crawled into my chest instantly. No. No, no, no. Not this. Not publicly. Because public humiliation inside Bloodcrest usually ended in violence. She must answer directly to Alpha Edward, Marcy declared. And suddenly, the crowd separated. Silence spread through the courtyard so quickly it felt unnatural. Alpha Edward had arrived. Even now, years later, I still remember the sound of his boots against stone. Slow. Measured. Powerful. The Bloodcrest Alpha stood taller than most warriors, broad shoulders hidden beneath dark ceremonial furs. Silver threaded through his hair near the temples, but age had done nothing to weaken the danger around him. People feared Alpha Edward because he rarely raised his voice. He never needed to. The courtyard lowered itself around him automatically. Heads bowed. Eyes dropped. Nobody breathed too loudly. I did the same. Because fear had trained my body long before my mind understood it. Marcy stepped toward him immediately. My Alpha, she said sweetly, I believe the rumors were true. Alpha Edward's eyes landed on me slowly. Then on my feet. Then on the healing burns across my hands. For one terrible moment, hope returned. Tiny. Fragile. Stupid. Because deep inside me, part of me still believed adults protected children from monsters. Even after everything. I stepped forward before fear could stop me. My Alpha, I whispered. My voice shook badly. Please. Please just listen. She hurts me, I said quietly. The courtyard became completely silent. Marcy's smile disappeared instantly. I kept speaking anyway. Because once pain reaches a certain point, fear stops mattering. She burns me, I whispered. Locks me outside. Punishes me for things I didn't do. My throat tightened painfully. I tried to obey. I tried to stay quiet. My eyes burned with tears now. But I don't understand why everyone hates me. The silence afterward felt endless. I looked up at Alpha Edward. Waiting. Begging. Hoping. All he had to do was tell them to stop. One sentence. That was all. Instead, he smiled. Not warmly. Not kindly. Just disappointed. Like I had embarrassed him publicly. You were given shelter by this family, he said calmly. His voice carried across the courtyard effortlessly. You were fed. Protected. Allowed to live inside these walls. The hope inside me began collapsing piece by piece. And this is how you repay us? My breathing became uneven. No, I whispered quickly. That's not what I meant. You survive fire unnaturally. The crowd murmured again. You hear things other wolves cannot. More whispers. You bring fear wherever you go. My stomach dropped. How did he know that? Alpha Edward stepped closer now. Close enough for only me to hear the next words clearly. You should have died years ago. Cold spread through my body instantly. Then he turned toward the crowd. And destroyed whatever remained inside me. She is a cursed wolfless slave, Alpha Edward declared. Silence. Heavy silence. She exists to serve this pack. More silence. And if punishment is required. His eyes moved toward Marcy. Then punishment shall continue. The world around me stopped. I remember hearing my own breathing. Fast. Shallow. Broken. But everything else blurred into distant noise. Because in that moment, something inside me finally understood the truth. Nobody was coming to save me. Not the servants. Not the elders. Not the Alpha. Nobody. Marcy realized it too. I watched triumph spread slowly across her face. Not relief. Not satisfaction. Control. Complete control. That was the moment she understood she could do anything to me. Anything at all. And nobody inside Bloodcrest would stop her. Alpha Edward turned away first. Like the conversation bored him already. Take her back to her room, he ordered the guards. 2 warriors grabbed my arms instantly. I did not fight. I barely felt them dragging me across the courtyard stones while the crowd stared silently. Some looked uncomfortable. Others looked relieved. Most looked away completely. That hurt more than the punishment. Because cruelty becomes stronger when witnesses choose silence. The guards threw me inside my room before sunset and locked the door behind them. No food. No water. Just darkness. I curled against the wall shaking while tears burned down my face. Not loud crying. I learned years ago loud crying attracts attention. This was quieter. More dangerous. The kind that happens when hope finally dies. Hours passed. Rain battered the castle windows again. Wind moaned through distant hallways. And somewhere far beneath the castle, those chains rattled once more. I pressed both hands over my ears immediately. I did not want to hear it. Did not want to think about claw marks or strange dreams or impossible healing. I wanted silence. Instead, a howl shattered the night. Close. So close the window beside my bed rattled violently. I froze. Another howl followed. Deep. Massive. Right outside my room. Not distant forest wolves. Not pack patrols. This sounded bigger. Older. Hungry. The guards outside my door cursed immediately. You hear that? Hear what? That howl. There was no howl. My pulse stopped. I slowly lifted my head toward the window. Moonlight spilled across the floor in pale silver lines. And standing beyond the glass, something moved in the darkness outside. After that night, something changed inside me. Not suddenly. Not all at once. The change moved slowly. Quietly. Like frost spreading across glass while nobody watches. At first, I convinced myself the creature outside my window had been another nightmare. Fear can create strange things in lonely minds. That was what I told myself every morning while scrubbing floors with blistered hands. That was what I whispered whenever the howling returned after midnight. That was what I forced myself to believe whenever I woke with dirt beneath my fingernails and bruises I could not explain. But denial becomes difficult when your body starts doing impossible things. Years passed inside Bloodcrest. Cruelty became routine. So did silence. I stopped begging for mercy after the day Alpha Edward chose Marcy publicly. There seemed no point anymore. Hope only gave people more ways to hurt you. So I adapted. I learned how to disappear emotionally even while standing in crowded rooms. How to nod when insulted. How to clean blood from my lips before anyone noticed. How to survive punishment without screaming loudly enough to entertain the pack. The servants started calling me Ghost Girl behind my back. Not because I frightened them. Because I barely reacted anymore. Marcy hated that. Cruel people feed on visible pain. And I slowly stopped giving her the reactions she wanted. That only made her worse. At 17, she ordered servants to throw icy water over me before dawn because she claimed my curse smell contaminated the kitchens. At 18, she forced me to kneel outside the training grounds for hours while warriors walked past laughing. At 19, she began bringing guests to watch my punishments like some twisted performance. But the strange thing was this. The more pain my body endured, the stronger something beneath it became. I noticed it first during winter. A servant accidentally dropped a carving knife while preparing meat beside me. The blade sliced across my palm deeply enough that blood splashed onto the counter. The cook panicked immediately. That needs stitches, he muttered. I stared at the wound silently. Then something impossible happened. The bleeding slowed too quickly. The torn skin pulled together gradually right in front of me. Not instantly. Not enough for humans to notice unless watching closely. But enough. Enough to terrify me. I covered my hand immediately. The cook frowned. What's wrong with you? Nothing. I walked away before he could look closer. That word became my shield afterward. Nothing. You hear voices? Nothing. Your wounds healed overnight? Nothing. You smelled rain 3 hours before the storm arrived? Nothing. I denied everything because the alternative terrified me more than punishment ever had. Because if the rumors were true, if something truly lived inside me, then maybe Bloodcrest had been right all along. Maybe I really was dangerous. The abilities grew stronger over time. By 19, I could hear whispers through thick walls. Not every conversation. Only certain sounds. Strong emotions carried farther somehow. Fear. Anger. Excitement. Those emotions reached me first. Sometimes I woke hearing distant arguments happening 3 floors below my room. Other nights I heard warriors patrolling the outer gates long before they reached the castle entrance. I never told anyone. I barely admitted it to myself. Then came the emotions. That part frightened me worst of all. I began sensing moods before people spoke. Marcy's rage entered rooms before she did. Alpha Edward carried exhaustion hidden beneath his calm expression. Servants radiated fear whenever full moons approached. And whenever someone lied. Something inside me reacted instantly. Like my body recognized dishonesty before my mind understood it. I hated it. Hated all of it. Because every strange ability dragged me closer to a truth I refused to face. Wolfless humans could not do these things. One evening I dropped an entire tray of silver plates because a sudden wave of panic crashed through my chest so violently it nearly knocked me over. The servants jumped in surprise as metal shattered across the floor. "What's wrong with you?" one snapped. I could barely answer. Someone nearby was terrified. Not ordinary fear. Pure panic. A few seconds later, screaming erupted outside the castle walls. Rogues had breached the eastern forest border. My breathing stopped. I had sensed it before it happened. That realization haunted me for weeks. And the closer I came to understanding the truth, the more afraid I became of myself. Because there were moments. Small moments. When anger felt different now. Sharper. Hungrier. Especially around Marcy. Sometimes during punishments I caught myself imagining what it would feel like to stop fighting weakness entirely. To let whatever lived beneath my skin rise fully. That thought horrified me immediately afterward. Because monsters enjoy violent thoughts. And I never wanted to become what Bloodcrest already believed I was. Still. The darkness inside me kept growing. The dreams became more vivid too. I stopped seeing only flashes. Now entire memories seemed trapped inside them. Running through forests beneath moonlight. The taste of blood. Cold wind pushing through thick fur. A roar powerful enough to shake snow from trees. The worst part? The dreams no longer frightened me completely. Part of me missed them after waking. That terrified me more than the nightmares themselves. Then came the hunger. At first it seemed harmless. Meat smelled stronger than before. Rare steaks made my pulse quicken strangely. Eventually I started avoiding the kitchens during raw meat deliveries because the scent overwhelmed me. One afternoon, I accidentally grabbed a boiling pan with bare hands while distracted. A servant screamed. The metal should have destroyed my skin instantly. Instead, the burns faded before sunset. I sat awake all night afterward staring at my hands in silence. No human healed like this. No human heard things buried behind stone walls. No human sensed emotions carried through crowded rooms. So what was I becoming? That question followed me everywhere. Especially at night. Because the growling beneath the castle never stopped. Sometimes it sounded distant. Other times so close I felt vibrations through the floorboards. And every full moon, those chains rattled harder. Like something underground was trying to break free. Then came the night everything nearly changed forever. A servant named Corin cornered me near the storage halls after midnight. Drunk. Angry. Cruel. I recognized the smell before seeing him. Rotten alcohol. Sweat. Aggression. "You think you're special now," he slurred. I tried walking past him immediately. That was usually safest. But he grabbed my arm hard enough to bruise. "I'm talking to you." Fear crawled through me instantly. Not because of him. Because something inside me reacted too quickly. Too violently. My heartbeat deepened. That strange heat spread beneath my ribs again. Corin shoved me against the wall. You've been staring at the warriors lately, he hissed. Trying to act like one of us. I wasn't. His hand closed around my throat. And suddenly, everything changed. The hallway smelled different. Sharper. I could hear his pulse hammering beneath skin. Hear blood moving through veins. Hear fear beginning to creep into his body as my expression changed. Because for the first time, I stopped feeling helpless. That realization terrified me. Let go, I whispered. My voice sounded wrong. Lower. Rougher. Corin hesitated. Only for a second. But it was enough. Something inside me moved. Fast. Violent. Hungry. The next thing I remember clearly was blood. Lots of it. Splashing across the storage room floor. Then darkness. When I woke hours later, I was alone. Curled against the cold stone wall, shaking violently. My clothes were stained red. Deep claw marks covered the wooden shelves nearby. And Corin was gone. No body. No bones. Nothing. Only blood remained drying across the floor beneath my trembling hands. I cleaned Corin's blood before sunrise. Not because I was innocent. Because inside Bloodcrest, survival always came before grief. My hands shook the entire time. The storage room smelled so heavily of iron that breathing became difficult. Red stains stretched across the stone floor in violent patterns I could not explain. One shelf had been split completely down the center, like something massive slammed into it. Or through it. I kept trying to remember what happened. But every memory ended the same way. Corin's hand around my throat. That sudden heat beneath my skin. Then darkness. Nothing after that. No screams. No fight. No body. Just blood. Too much blood. I scrubbed the floor until my fingers bled. By the time other servants woke, the room looked normal again. Almost. The claw marks remained. Deep. Longer than human hands should make. I covered them with storage crates before anyone noticed. Or at least, I hoped nobody noticed. The next few days became unbearable. Every sound made my pulse jump. Every whisper felt dangerous. I expected warriors to drag me away at any moment. But Corin's disappearance created something worse than punishment. Fear. The entire pack became restless. Search parties combed the forest. Servants whispered during meals. Several warriors claimed they smelled rogue wolves near the western cliffs. Others blamed mountain predators. No one blamed me. At least not openly. Still, I noticed how people looked at me differently afterward. Longer stares. Uneasy silence. Even Marcy seemed distracted. Because Bloodcrest had bigger problems now. The Dark Howlers were coming. I heard the news before sunrise 3 days later. Not from servants. From the heartbeat of the castle itself. Fear changes the sound of people. It spreads differently through walls. Through footsteps. Through breathing. That morning, everyone sounded afraid. I stood in the kitchen slicing meat when 2 warriors entered, arguing quietly near the doorway. They crossed Black Hollow by midnight. That's impossible. They killed rogue territory guards without stopping once. My knife paused midair. Another warrior lowered his voice carefully. Damon's coming. The room went silent instantly. Even the cooks stopped moving. That name carried weight inside Bloodcrest. Alpha Damon. Leader of the Dark Howlers. The most feared alpha in North America. Stories about him traveled farther than most kings. Some claimed he ended wars before they started simply by arriving at enemy borders. Others said he ripped a rogue alpha apart with his bare hands after the man threatened one of his wolves. There were darker rumors too. Entire packs disappearing overnight after betraying him. Bodies found miles apart in forests stained black with blood. Howls heard across mountains before massacres began. No Luna. No heirs. No weakness anyone could find. And somehow, that frightened powerful people most of all. Alpha Edward became obsessed with preparations immediately. The castle transformed overnight. Servants polished floors until marble reflected torchlight like mirrors. Warriors doubled patrols. Extra guards surrounded the western gates. Even the banners changed. Bloodcrest colors hung from every tower as if appearances could protect us from whatever approached through the mountains. But nobody changed more than Marcy. For the first time in years, Princess Marcy looked nervous. Not scared. Excited. Obsessed. She spent hours choosing dresses. Hours inspecting servants. Hours practicing smiles inside mirrors. Because Marcy had already decided something important. She wanted Alpha Daemon. And Marcy always believed the world existed to give her what she wanted. I watched her transform over those days. The cruelty remained. But beneath it, hunger. Not physical hunger. Ambition. The kind that consumes people slowly. One evening while fitting jewels around her throat, she caught me staring accidentally through the mirror reflection. Her eyes narrowed instantly. "What are you looking at?" I lowered my head immediately. "Nothing, my lady." Marcy walked toward me slowly. "You know what they say about Daemon?" I stayed silent. That usually pleased her more than answers. "They say women lose control around him," she whispered. Her fingers brushed the diamonds at her throat. "They say he can make wolves kneel with one look." A strange feeling twisted inside my chest suddenly. Sharp. Uncomfortable. Marcy smiled faintly. But powerful men always become bored eventually. Her eyes hardened. "I won't bore him." That night, I could not sleep. The castle felt wrong. Restless. Like the entire territory sensed something approaching long before the dark howlers arrived. Then came the scent. Pine. Smoke. Rain. So powerful it jolted me awake instantly. My breathing stopped. That scent again. The same one from the courtyard. The same one from the coal test. Except now. It was stronger. Closer. My pulse hammered violently beneath my ribs. Thump. 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 I sat upright slowly inside darkness while cold air slipped through the cracked window. The scent filled my room completely now. Wild. Male. Dangerous. And beneath it. Wolf. My body reacted instantly. Heat spread beneath my skin so fast it hurt. My hearing sharpened violently. Suddenly I could hear guards speaking outside the outer walls nearly half a mile away. Could hear horses moving through snow. Could hear heavy boots crushing frozen ground in perfect rhythm. They were here. The dark howlers had arrived. Fear rolled through the castle immediately. Doors opening. Warriors shouting orders. Servants rushing through hallways. Then came the howls. Deep. Massive. So powerful the windows trembled. I moved toward mine before fear could stop me. The mountains beyond Bloodcrest glowed silver beneath moonlight. Torches moved through the snow far below like rivers of fire. And between them, wolves. Huge black wolves running beside mounted warriors. The dark howlers. Even from this distance, they looked wrong somehow. Too disciplined. Too silent. Like creatures built entirely for war. Then I saw him. Not clearly. Only a dark figure riding at the front beside Alpha Edward's welcoming guards. Tall. Still. Watching the castle like he already owned it. My heartbeat became uneven immediately. The scent intensified. Pine. Smoke. Rain. And something else beneath it now. Something ancient. Something that reached directly into my chest and tightened painfully around whatever lived there. I staggered backward, gripping the edge of my desk. What was happening to me? Why did my body react like this? Fear crawled beneath my skin. Because deep down, part of me already knew this feeling was dangerous. The next morning, Bloodcrest looked like a kingdom preparing for war disguised as celebration. Every servant received orders directly from Marcy herself. No mistakes. No delays. No embarrassing the pack before Damon. Especially me. You will stay quiet, Marcy warned while adjusting silver rings across her fingers. You will keep your eyes lowered. Her expression darkened. And if you embarrass me in front of him? She stepped closer. I'll finish what the fire started. I nodded automatically. But something inside me reacted violently when she mentioned him. Him. Not Alpha Damon. Just him. Like my body already recognized someone my mind had never met. That realization terrified me. By evening, the castle gathered inside the grand hall for Damon's formal entrance. Music echoed through massive stone chambers. Nobles lined the walls. Warriors stood rigid near pillars. Servants carried silver trays with trembling hands. I stayed near the back, trying to disappear. Then suddenly, silence spread through the hall. Not slowly. Instantly. The giant doors opened. Cold wind rushed inside, carrying snowflakes across the marble floor. And Alpha Damon entered Bloodcrest territory. The first thing I noticed was the pressure. Not physical. Something heavier. The entire room reacted to him instinctively. Warriors straightened. Servants lowered their eyes. Even Alpha Edward seemed tense. Damon walked forward slowly beside his men, black coat dusted with snow, broad shoulders filling the center of the hall effortlessly. He looked less like royalty. And more like something built for violence. Dark hair. Sharp jaw. Eyes so cold they barely seemed human. But it was his scent that nearly destroyed me. Pine. Smoke. Rain. It crashed into my body violently enough to steal breath from my lungs. Heat exploded beneath my skin. My pulse became unbearable. The room blurred around me. And then, for the first time in years, something inside my head spoke. One word. Deep. Male. Possessive. Mine. Mine. The word hit me so hard my knees nearly gave out beneath me. Not spoken aloud. Not heard with human ears. It came from somewhere deeper. Somewhere buried beneath years of silence and pain. For one terrifying second, the entire world disappeared around me. No music. No voices. No grand hall filled with nobles and warriors. Only that voice. Mine. I stumbled backward instantly, gripping the edge of a serving table hard enough to steady myself. My breathing became uneven. Fast. Sharp. Wrong. Nobody noticed. Or at least I prayed they had not. Because inside Bloodcrest, strange behavior invited questions. And questions invited punishment. I forced myself to lower my head again. Do not look at him. Do not think about him. Do not let whatever is happening inside you show on your face. That should have been easy. It wasn't. Because Alpha Damon kept looking at me. Not openly. Not enough for the room to notice immediately. But every few minutes, I felt it. His attention. Heavy. Focused. Dangerous. The formal dinner began less than an hour later. And from the moment it started, something felt deeply wrong. The Bloodcrest dining hall had always felt intimidating, but that night it became suffocating. Massive chandeliers burned overhead while candlelight flickered across long black tables covered in silver plates and crystal goblets. The room smelled of roasted meat, expensive wine, smoke, and tension. So much tension. Dark Howler warriors sat along one side of the hall like silent predators disguised as guests. Unlike Bloodcrest wolves, they barely spoke. Barely moved. They watched everything. Calculated everything. Even the servants noticed it. Hands shook while pouring drinks. Eyes stayed lowered longer than usual. Nobody wanted to make mistakes around wolves rumored to tear enemies apart without hesitation. Especially not around Damon. He sat beside Alpha Edward at the center of the hall wearing black formal clothing that somehow made him look even more dangerous than armor would have. Still. Silent. Cold. Like violence waiting patiently beneath skin. Princess Marcy practically glowed beside him. Jewels around her throat. Silver dress hugging her figure perfectly. A smile carefully practiced for hours. She looked exactly like what powerful men were expected to want. Beautiful. Elegant. Deadly. And she wanted him desperately. I saw it immediately. Every movement she made revolved around his attention. The way she laughed softer near him. The way her fingers brushed his arm during conversation. The way she tilted her head while speaking as if performing for invisible cameras. But Damon barely reacted. That was the strange part. Most men inside Bloodcrest fell apart around Marcy. Damon looked bored. Not rude. Not impressed. Just distant. Like his mind remained somewhere else entirely. And every single time Marcy tried pulling his focus toward her, his eyes drifted back to me. At first I convinced myself I imagined it. I had to. Because the alternative terrified me. Why would someone like Alpha Damon notice a servant? An abused orphan. A wolfless slave. Nothing about me should have mattered to him. Still. I kept feeling it. His gaze. Heavy enough to make my pulse stumble every time. I carried trays through the hall trying desperately to stay invisible. Lower your eyes. Move quietly. Do not draw attention. That was how servants survived. But surviving became difficult whenever Damon looked at me. Because every single time he did, the heat beneath my skin returned. My senses sharpened violently around him. I could hear his heartbeat from across the room. Slow. Controlled. Powerful. Unlike mine. Mine sounded chaotic now. Thump. 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 Too fast. Too deep. Like something inside me kept trying to wake fully. Marcy noticed eventually. Of course she did. Cruel people notice shifts in attention faster than anyone else. Especially when they feel control slipping away. I was pouring wine near Damon's side of the table when Marcy suddenly spoke louder than necessary. Father says Bloodcrest territory becomes beautiful during winter, she said smoothly. Damon gave a small nod. It's quieter than I expected. Marcy laughed softly. We prefer peace over chaos. One of Damon's warriors nearly choked on his drink hearing that. I kept my eyes lowered immediately. Because even servants knew Bloodcrest had started 3 border wars within 5 years. Marcy continued anyway. I would love to show you the eastern cliffs tomorrow. Silence. Then Damon finally answered. Maybe. One word. Flat. Emotionless. Marcy's smile tightened slightly. For the first time all evening. She looked irritated. Then Damon spoke again. Without looking at her. Who's the servant? Every muscle inside my body locked instantly. Silence swallowed the table. I stopped breathing. Marcy's face changed so quickly it almost frightened me. Jealousy. Confusion. Rage. All hidden beneath a smile. That, she asked lightly. I hated that word immediately. That. Like I was an object beside the wall. She's nobody, Marcy said casually. An orphan we took in years ago. Damon finally looked directly at me. And suddenly, the room felt too small. Those eyes were unbearable up close. Cold gray mixed with something animal beneath them. Something watching carefully. Studying. Hunting. I lowered my gaze immediately before panic overwhelmed me completely. But not before noticing something impossible. The moment our eyes met. His heartbeat changed too. Faster. Only for a second. Then controlled again instantly. No one else seemed to notice. But I did. And somehow. That terrified me more than anything. Dinner continued. The tension worsened. Marcy became more aggressive, trying to reclaim Damon's attention. Touching his arm. Laughing louder. Leaning closer whenever she spoke. He tolerated it politely. Nothing more. Meanwhile I kept making mistakes. Small ones. Tiny movements revealing how badly my body reacted around him. Dropping utensils. Pausing too long beside his chair. Forgetting simple instructions. The heat inside me kept building. And Damon kept noticing. Every single time. Then came the moment everything changed. I was carving roasted meat beside the serving tables while nobles argued about territory politics nearby. My hands already shook badly from nerves. Then Damon looked at me again. Directly. The heat beneath my skin surged violently. My concentration broke. And the knife slipped. Pain flashed across my palm instantly. Sharp. Deep. I sucked in a breath automatically as blood spilled across my hand. Only a few drops. That was all. But the moment the scent hit the air, everything stopped. Completely. The hall fell silent so suddenly it felt unnatural. No movement. No conversation. Nothing. Then I heard it. Damon inhaling. Slowly. Deeply. The sound alone made fear crawl through my chest. I looked up before I could stop myself. Big mistake. His expression had changed completely. Gone was the cold, distant alpha sitting politely through dinner. This looked different. Animal. Hungry. His jaw tightened hard enough to visibly strain. Gray eyes darkened instantly. And for the first time all night, Alpha Damon looked out of control. The room noticed too. Dark Howler warriors straightened immediately. Alpha Edward stopped speaking mid-sentence. Even Marcy froze. Because every predator in that hall recognized the same thing at once. Something dangerous had just happened. My blood continued dripping onto the floor. One drop. Then another. Damon stared at it like a starving wolf staring at raw meat after winter. His breathing deepened slightly. Not enough for humans. Enough for wolves. Enough for me. Fear crashed into my chest violently. Because suddenly, the heat inside my body answered his. Hungry. Awake. Alive. I stepped backward instinctively. And Damon moved at the exact same moment. Fast. Too fast. His chair slammed backward across the stone floor with a violent crack that echoed through the hall. Gasps erupted around us. Several warriors half rose from their seats instantly. Marcy looked stunned. But Damon never looked at any of them. Only me. Only the blood sliding down my trembling hand. For one horrifying second, his eyes flashed gold. For one horrifying second, his eyes flashed gold. Not ordinary wolf eyes. These looked darker. Older. Like something violent lived behind them, struggling to stay restrained. The entire dining hall froze. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. I could hear it though. Heartbeats. Dozens of them. Fast. Uneasy. Afraid. Even Alpha Edward's pulse had changed. Because every Alpha in that room understood the same terrifying truth at once. Alpha Damon almost lost control. And somehow, I was the reason. My injured hand trembled violently while blood continued sliding between my fingers onto the marble floor. One drop. Then another. The scent spread through the hall like smoke. Damon's gaze followed every single one. Hungry. Focused. Wrong. The Dark Howler warriors reacted first. 3 of them stood instantly, not threatening him. Protecting everyone else. That terrified me more than Damon himself. Because wolves only prepare for violence when they know how dangerous their alpha truly becomes. Marcy tried recovering first. Of course she did. She stepped toward Damon slowly with a practiced smile. "My lord," she said softly, "perhaps the servant should be removed." No response. Damon never looked away from me. That silence stretched too long. The room grew colder somehow. Then finally, Damon inhaled slowly and leaned back into his chair again. Controlled. Calm. Perfectly composed. Like nothing happened. But it had happened. Everyone knew it. Especially me. Because something inside my chest had reacted the moment he lost control. Not fear. Recognition. That same heat spread beneath my skin again. Sharp enough to hurt. I wrapped my bleeding hand tightly in cloth while trying to steady my breathing. Do not panic. Do not run. Do not let them see you afraid. But my body already knew something my mind still refused to understand. Alpha Damon was dangerous to me in ways that had nothing to do with violence. Dinner ended shortly afterward. Too abruptly. Too quietly. The nobles left whispering. Bloodcrest warriors avoided eye contact with the Dark Howlers completely. And Marcy. Marcy looked furious. Not openly. She hid it well. But I sensed emotions too clearly now. Jealousy rolled off her in crushing waves. Humiliation too. Because for the first time in her life, someone powerful had ignored her. And looked at me instead. That realization poisoned the air around her. I tried disappearing immediately after cleanup duties began. But before I could leave the dining hall, Damon spoke again. Wait. One word. Quiet. Controlled. Still enough to stop the entire room instantly. My body froze before my mind processed why. I turned slowly. Damon stood near the center table, now watching me with unreadable eyes. Close enough that his scent overwhelmed me completely. Pine. Smoke. Rain. And beneath it, wolf. Ancient. Violent. Awake. The heat inside my chest responded instantly. "You're injured," he said. I glanced at the cloth around my hand quickly. "It's nothing." Lie. Not because of pain. Because my wound had already begun healing. Too quickly. Too unnaturally. I needed to leave before anyone noticed. Damon stepped closer instead. Fear tightened my stomach immediately. Not fear of being hurt. Fear of being seen. His eyes dropped toward the blood seeping through the cloth. Then back to my face. What's your name? Silence swallowed the hall again. Because nobody important ever asked servants for names. Especially not alphas. My throat tightened. Nyra. The way he looked at me after hearing it made my pulse stumble. Like he recognized something hidden beneath the sound itself. Then Alpha Edward interrupted sharply. She's irrelevant. The tension changed instantly. Cold. Dangerous. Damon slowly turned toward him. I didn't ask you. Even the torches seemed quieter after that. Alpha Edward forced a smile quickly. Of course. She's simply a servant we took in years ago. Again that word. Took in. Like I should feel grateful for surviving abuse inside their walls. Damon's expression never changed. But something about the room suddenly felt wrong. Like invisible claws scraped beneath the conversation itself. Then he asked the question that changed everything. How old was she when she arrived here? Alpha Edward hesitated. Tiny. Barely noticeable. But I noticed. So did Damon. 8, Edward answered finally. The same age Marcy poured gold onto my head. Damon's eyes narrowed slightly. And for the first time since arriving at Bloodcrest. He looked suspicious. That night, the castle barely slept. Neither did I. The dinner replayed inside my head endlessly. Damon's reaction to my blood. The way his control almost broke. The strange voice inside me calling him mine. Nothing made sense anymore. And worst of all, part of me did not want it to stop. That terrified me deeply. Because monsters enjoy dangerous things. Around midnight, footsteps stopped outside my room. Not servant steps. Too heavy. Too controlled. I held my breath immediately. The set reached me seconds later. Pine. Smoke. Rain. Damon. My pulse exploded instantly. But he never entered. Never knocked. He simply stood outside the door silently. Listening. Or maybe sensing something. I stayed frozen beneath my blankets while the strange heat beneath my skin pulsed harder with every passing second. Then finally, his footsteps disappeared down the corridor. I should have felt relieved. Instead, I felt disappointed. That realization frightened me more than anything else. The next morning, whispers spread across Bloodcrest before sunrise. Alpha Damon had spent half the night investigating the castle archives. Questioning old servants. Speaking privately with Elder Rowan. Nobody understood why. But I did. He was investigating me. And somehow, that made everything worse. Because the deeper he searched, the more dangerous the truth became. By afternoon, Damon disappeared into the lower healer quarters beneath the eastern tower. Few people entered that section anymore. Most of Bloodcrest's older healers either retired or died years ago. Only one remained below regularly. Old healer Nyra. Blind. Ancient. Quiet enough that most wolves forgot she existed. I knew her differently. She was the only person in Bloodcrest who ever touched my injuries gently. Years ago, after Marcy burned my hands with coal irons, Nyra whispered something strange while wrapping bandages around my skin. They should never have suppressed it this young. At the time I thought fever made me hear wrong. Now, I wasn't so sure. Damon stayed inside Nyra's chambers nearly an hour. Long enough for rumors to spread through the entire castle. When he finally emerged, his expression looked colder than before. Focused. Dangerously focused. That same night, I learned why. I was delivering fresh linens through the eastern hallway when voices drifted through the healer chamber door. Damon's voice. Low. Controlled. And Nyra's. Weak. Afraid. She should be dead, Nyra whispered. Silence. Then Damon spoke carefully. Explain. My breathing stopped. She belongs to an ancient bloodline, Nyra said quietly. Older than modern packs. Older than Bloodcrest itself. Cold spread through my chest instantly. No. No, no, no. She was born with an alpha wolf, Nyra continued. A rare one. I nearly dropped the linens. Impossible. I had no wolf. Everyone knew that. Then came the words that shattered everything I believed about myself. It was suppressed intentionally. The hallway tilted beneath me. I gripped the wall hard enough to steady myself. Inside the room, Damon's heartbeat deepened slightly. By who? Silence. Long. Heavy. Finally Nyra answered. Alpha Edward. The world stopped. Every memory suddenly looked different. The punishments. The lies. The fear in Elder Rowan's eyes. Marcy's obsession with destroying me. None of it happened accidentally. They knew. They had always known. I backed away from the door slowly, shaking violently now. Because if Nyra told the truth, then my entire life inside Bloodcrest was built on lies. I wasn't wolfless. I was chained. Buried. Broken on purpose. And somewhere deep inside me, something furious finally began waking completely. That was when another memory surfaced suddenly. Not a dream this time. Real. A blurred image from childhood. Hands holding me down. Pain burning across my back. Voices chanting. Then screaming. I stumbled into my room moments later, barely breathing. My hands shook uncontrollably while trying to remove my dress. Then I turned toward the mirror. And finally saw them clearly. The scars across my back. Not ordinary scars. Marks. Curved. Ancient. Deliberate. Like symbols carved directly into my skin years ago. And somehow, they looked exactly like claws trying to break free. The moment I saw the scars, my body remembered something my mind had buried for years. Pain. Not ordinary pain. This felt older. Deeper. Like terror preserved beneath skin waiting for the right moment to wake again. I stared at my reflection while candlelight trembled across the markings carved into my back. They curved downward along my spine like claw marks frozen beneath flesh. Ancient. Deliberate. Wrong. My breathing became uneven immediately. Because those were not scars left by punishment. Those marks had purpose. And suddenly, I remembered hands holding me down. Voices chanting. The smell of blood. A child screaming. Me. The memory hit so violently my knees nearly gave out beneath me. I grabbed the edge of the dresser trying to stay upright, but another wave crashed through my body instantly afterward. Pain. Sharp. Burning. Directly beneath my ribs. I gasped. The room tilted. Something inside me moved. Not emotionally. Physically. Like an animal waking beneath skin after years trapped underground. No, I whispered. Panic spread through me instantly. The air smelled too strong again. Wood. Dust. Rain outside the castle. Torches burning 3 hallways away. And beneath all of it. Wolf. My wolf. Awake. The voice returned next. Not words this time. growling, low, hungry. Inside my head. I stumbled backward, clutching my chest hard enough to bruise. This cannot be happening. I'm not a wolf. I'm not. Pain exploded through my spine before the thought finished. I screamed. The sound barely sounded human. My knees hit the floor violently while heat tore through my entire body like fire trapped beneath bone. Then came the knocking. Heavy fists slamming against my door. Open it. Marcy. Of course. Another wave hit before I could answer. My back arched painfully. I heard something crack inside me. The sound froze my blood instantly. Bone. One of my ribs bent the wrong way beneath skin. I collapsed sideways, gasping for air. The door burst open seconds later. Marcy entered first with 2 guards behind her. And the moment she saw me, her expression changed completely. Fear. Real fear. I lay twisted against the floor, trembling violently while blood dripped slowly from my nose onto the wood beneath me. Another crack split through the room. One of my fingers bent backward unnaturally. The guards stepped away immediately. What's happening to her? One whispered. I tried answering. Another scream tore out instead. The growling inside my head became louder now. Louder than my own thoughts. Louder than Marcy shouting orders. Louder than the guards backing toward the hallway. And somewhere beyond the castle walls, wolves began howling. Dozens of them. Answering something waking inside Bloodcrest. That terrified everyone. Including me. Because wolves only howl like that for death. Or an alpha. Marcy recovered first. Take her underground, she snapped. The guards hesitated. She's changing. Now. Another crack echoed through the room. My body convulsed violently across the floor. Pain flooded every nerve so completely I could no longer tell where my body ended and the agony began. The guards finally grabbed me. Big mistake. The moment one touched my arm, something inside me reacted instantly. A sound exploded from my throat. Not human. The guard screamed and stumbled backward, clutching deep scratches bleeding across his wrist. I stared at the wounds in horror. I never touched him. At least, I did not remember touching him. The second guard looked terrified now. She's becoming rogue. No, Marcy whispered. And somehow, that sounded worse. They dragged me through the lower castle halls while my body continued breaking apart piece by piece. I barely remember the journey clearly. Only fragments. Torchlight shaking across stone walls. My own screams echoing through underground tunnels. The smell of ancient dust beneath the castle. And chains. So many chains. Then the doors opened. Massive iron doors hidden beneath Bloodcrest itself. Cold air rushed over my skin instantly. The underground prison. The same place where I heard growling for years. The same place where chains rattled every full moon. Fear exploded through me. Because suddenly, I understood. Those sounds had never been random. Something had always been kept down here. Something dangerous. And now, they were bringing me to it. The guards threw me inside a massive stone chamber before slamming the doors shut behind them. Darkness swallowed everything immediately. Only one torch burned outside the bars far down the corridor. I curled against the cold floor, shaking uncontrollably while pain twisted through every inch of my body. Then I heard breathing. Not mine. Deep. Slow. Close. Something moved in the darkness beyond the walls. Chains rattled softly. Back and forth. Back and forth. Like another creature underground sensed me now. My pulse hammered violently. I tried crawling backward. Another crack split through my spine before I moved 2 feet. I screamed again. This time something answered. A roar. Massive. Ancient. Somewhere deep beneath the prison chambers. The sound shook dust from the ceiling. Then silence returned. Heavy silence. The kind that makes your own breathing sound too loud. Hours passed underground. Or maybe minutes. Pain distorted time until nothing felt real anymore. At some point I realized moonlight had started slipping through the tiny iron window high above the chamber wall. The full moon. That was when everything became worse. The heat beneath my skin exploded instantly. I collapsed hard onto the stone floor gasping while my bones began shifting again. Crack. 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 The sounds echoed through the prison chamber one after another. My fingers twisted first. Then wrists. Then ribs. I clawed desperately at the stone floor trying to hold myself together. But my body no longer belonged entirely to me. Something else pushed upward beneath flesh now. Hungry. Furious. Awake. My breathing distorted next. Human breaths became growls halfway through exhaling. I heard claws scraping stone beneath my hands before realizing the sound came from me. No. No, no, no. Another scream tore through the chamber. Then memories hit. Not dreams. Not imagination. Memories. Running through snow beneath moonlight. Blood spraying across white ground. Golden eyes reflected in frozen rivers. A female voice whispering softly. They will fear what you become. Then pain swallowed everything again. The torchlight outside flickered violently now. Guards shouted somewhere beyond the corridor. One voice sounded terrified. She's breaking the chains. Another crack thundered through the chamber walls. The iron restraints bolted into the floor ripped loose suddenly with a scream of twisting metal. I stared at them in horror through blurred vision. That should not have been possible. Nothing human could do that. And slowly, something moved across the floor beneath me. A shadow. Large. Wrong. The moonlight shifted across claws extending from trembling fingers. My fingers. I stopped breathing. Because deep down, I already understood. The wolf was never dead. It was imprisoned. And now, it was finally tearing its way free. The last thing I remember clearly that night was screaming while something inside me roared loud enough to shake the underground walls. Then darkness swallowed everything. The next morning, Bloodcrest woke to panic. 3 prison guards were missing. No bodies. No weapons. Nothing. Only blood remained drying across the underground stone floors. That was all Bloodcrest found after the full moon ended. No bodies. No bones. No torn uniforms. Just blood. And me. Alive. I woke chained inside the underground chamber hours later with no memory of how the night ended. My entire body ached like every bone had been shattered and forced back together repeatedly. The stone floor beneath me smelled heavily of iron. Blood. Too much blood. Fear crawled slowly through my chest as fragmented memories returned in flashes. Screaming. Claws scraping stone. A roar shaking the prison walls. Then darkness. I looked down at my hands immediately. Human. For now. But deep scratches covered my arms like something fought desperately to claw its way out from beneath my skin. The chains around my wrists looked worse. Bent. Twisted. Half broken. Cold panic spread through me instantly. I did that. Somehow. I did that. Footsteps echoed beyond the prison hall. Fast. Uneasy. The moment the guards reached my chamber, I smelled their fear before seeing their faces. They would not look directly at me anymore. Good. Because I did not want to see what lived inside their thoughts. Monster. That word followed me everywhere now. One guard unlocked the outer gate carefully while keeping his hand near his weapon the entire time. Another whispered nervously behind him. She killed them. I heard they found claw marks on the walls. That thing isn't stable. Thing. Not girl. Not servant. Not Nyra. Already I was becoming less human inside their eyes. And maybe they were right. The guards dragged me upstairs through silent corridors while the castle watched from shadows. Servants stopped speaking when I passed. Warriors stiffened near walls. Fear moved through Bloodcrest like smoke now. Not fear of rogues. Not fear of enemies. Fear of me. I wanted to tell them I was afraid too. But what would be the point? Monsters are never believed when they claim innocence. The grand hall looked different that morning. Tense. Weapons lined the walls. Extra guards surrounded the entrance. Elders whispered among themselves near the throne platform. And standing at the center of it all was Marcy. Waiting. Her silver dress made her look elegant from a distance. Up close, she looked furious. No. Furious was too small a word. Terrified people become crueler when control slips away. And Marcy's control was cracking apart right in front of everyone. The moment she saw me, hatred flooded her expression openly. There she is, she snapped. The guards shoved me forward hard enough that my knees hit the floor. Pain shot through my legs instantly. Nobody helped me stand. Of course they didn't. Marcy stepped closer slowly. You killed them. The room stayed silent. I swallowed hard. I don't remember what happened. Lie. Not completely. Fragments haunted me already. Blood. Growling. Running through darkness. Something screaming beneath moonlight. Marcy laughed sharply. How convenient. I lowered my head immediately, trying to steady my breathing. But fear rolled through the room so heavily now it became overwhelming. I could feel everyone's emotions pressing against me at once. Disgust. Panic. Curiosity. Hatred. And beneath all of it, Alpha Edward's fear. That shocked me most. Because powerful men rarely fear things they believe they can control. And for the first time, Alpha Edward no longer looked certain of anything. She cannot remain alive, Marcy announced loudly. The room shifted uneasily. She's unstable. Dangerous. Corrupted. Each word hit harder than the last. My pulse deepened instantly. Not from anger. From something beneath it. The wolf listening. Awake now. Always awake. Marcy continued speaking while pacing slowly around me. 3 guards vanished in one night. What happens when she loses control again? The crowd murmured. I closed my eyes briefly. Because the worst part? I had asked myself the same question already. What if they were right? What if I hurt innocent people next time? What if the wolf inside me truly was monstrous? That fear hollowed me out from the inside. Because despite everything Bloodcrest did to me, I never wanted blood on my hands. Then Marcy said the words that changed the room completely. She should be executed before the next moonrise. Silence. Heavy silence. I looked up slowly. And saw something terrifying in her eyes. Relief. Marcy did not just want me punished anymore. She wanted me erased. Because dead things cannot threaten power. My breathing became uneven again. The wolf reacted instantly. Heat spread beneath my skin. Growling echoed faintly inside my chest. Danger. The wolf sensed danger before I consciously processed it. Marcy noticed my reaction immediately. There, she snapped, pointing toward me. Look at her. The room stiffened. My nails dug into my palms hard enough to bleed. Do not lose control. Do not. She's becoming rogue, Marcy whispered. No. Not rogue. Something worse. Because rogues lose control through rage. This felt older. Deeper. Like fury trapped beneath chains for years finally learning how to breathe. Marcy stepped even closer now. Close enough that I could smell fear beneath her perfume. Interesting. For the first time in our lives. Princess Marcy feared me too. That realization sent something dark through my chest. Satisfaction. The wolf liked her fear. I hated that part immediately. Then another voice cut through the hall. Cold. Controlled. Enough. Alpha Daemon. The room shifted instantly toward him. He stood near the throne platform wearing black again, broad shoulders rigid, eyes fixed entirely on me. Not fear. Not disgust. Recognition. That frightened me more than hatred would have. Marcy turned sharply. She killed members of this pack. Daemon's expression never changed. Did you see her do it? Silence. Marcy clenched her jaw. The evidence is blood. His voice stayed calm. But no bodies. The room fell silent again. Alpha Edward finally stepped forward. She transformed, he said carefully. Daemon looked at him slowly. So would any wolf suppressed for years. The entire hall froze. My pulse stopped. No one spoke. No one breathed. Because Daemon had just confirmed the truth publicly. I was never wolfless. Every eye in Bloodcrest turned toward Alpha Edward instantly. His expression hardened. You know nothing about her. Daemon stepped forward slightly. I know enough. The tension changed immediately. Heavy. Violent. Two alphas standing against each other inside one room felt less like conversation. And more like war waiting for permission. Marcy looked panicked now. Because Daemon was ruining everything. Ruining the story Bloodcrest spent years building around me. She's dangerous, Marcy hissed. Daemon's eyes moved toward her finally. And for the first time since arriving. He looked openly hostile. You made her dangerous. The silence afterward felt endless. My breathing stopped completely. Because deep down, I already knew he spoke the truth. The torture. The beatings. The suppression. They did not weaken the wolf inside me. They fed it. Every wound. Every humiliation. Every moment of pain forced the wolf to survive harder. Stronger. Meaner. And now Bloodcrest feared the very thing they created themselves. That realization broke something inside me. Not loudly. Quietly. Like ice cracking beneath deep water. I spent years believing I deserved suffering. Years believing I was broken from birth. But what if I wasn't born monstrous? What if they made me this way? The wolf stirred violently at that thought. Anger rolled through my body so fast it hurt. Marcy stepped closer again. Still speaking. Still provoking. Still believing she controlled the room. She belongs in chains. My vision blurred suddenly. Heartbeat. Thump. 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 Too loud. Too deep. She should never have been allowed near civilized wolves. Another crack echoed inside my skull. My hands trembled violently. The wolf wanted out. Now. She's an animal. Wrong thing to say. Very wrong. Because suddenly, I smelled her fear spike sharply. And before I realized what I was doing, I moved. Fast. Too fast. The chains around my wrists snapped violently. Gasps exploded through the hall. Marcy barely had time to scream before I slammed her against the nearest pillar hard enough to crack stone behind her. The room erupted instantly. Warriors shouted. Weapons unsheathed. But all I heard was the wolf roaring inside my head. Marcy stared at me in pure terror now. And for one horrifying second, I wanted her afraid. And for one horrifying second, I wanted her afraid. Not embarrassed. Not humiliated. Afraid. The realization slammed into me harder than the chains ever had. My hand tightened around Marcy's throat while her nails clawed desperately at my wrist. The entire hall erupted into chaos around us. Warriors shouting. Weapons unsheathing. Servants screaming. But all of it sounded distant beneath the roaring inside my skull. The wolf wanted blood. Not revenge. Not justice. Blood. That truth terrified me enough to break through the rage for half a second. I released Marcy instantly and staggered backward. She collapsed against the floor coughing violently while guards rushed toward her in panic. I stared down at my trembling hands in horror. No. No, no, no. This was exactly what Bloodcrest wanted. Proof. Proof that I truly was a monster. The wolf snarled inside my chest again. Hungry. Angry. Awake. I backed away further, trying to breathe through the violent heat crawling beneath my skin. Then Alpha Daemon moved. Fast. Too fast for human eyes. 1 second he stood near the throne platform. The next, he stood directly in front of me. The room froze instantly. Not because of speed. Because every wolf inside Bloodcrest felt the same thing at once. Power. Pure alpha dominance rolled through the hall so heavily even the warriors struggled to stay upright. The wolf inside me reacted immediately. Not with fear. Recognition. That scared me more than anything. Daemon looked down at me carefully. Close enough that his scent overwhelmed every other smell in the room. Pine. Smoke. Rain. Wolf. My pulse stumbled violently. Breathe, he said quietly. His voice cut through the chaos inside my head strangely fast. I hated that. Hated how my body responded to him before my mind agreed. Marcy pushed herself up from the floor gasping. She attacked me. Nobody answered immediately. Because something more important had already happened. The entire hall witnessed my wolf respond to Daemon differently than anyone else. Even Alpha Edward looked disturbed now. And beneath his anger, fear deepened further. Daemon never looked away from me. She's overwhelmed, he said calmly. Marcy stared at him like he betrayed her personally. She nearly killed me. Daemon's expression stayed cold. And yet you're still alive. The insult landed exactly how he intended. Marcy's face twisted instantly. Humiliation. Rage. Jealousy. Every emotion poured from her so intensely I nearly staggered beneath it. Then Daemon said the words that shattered the room completely. She's my mate. Silence. Absolute silence. No movement. No breathing. Nothing. Even my heart seemed to stop. Mate. The word echoed through me violently. Deep inside my chest, the wolf reacted instantly. Warmth spread beneath my ribs so fast it hurt. Mine. That voice again. Possessive. Ancient. Terrifying. Marcy looked like someone stabbed her directly through the chest. No, she whispered. Not angry. Broken. No. Alpha Edward stepped forward sharply. You cannot be serious. Damon finally looked away from me. And somehow, his expression looked dangerous now. I knew before I entered your territory. The room went still again. My breathing became uneven. What did that mean? Damon's gaze shifted back toward me slowly. I scented her before I crossed the mountain border. The memory hit instantly. The scent during the coal test. The strange heat. The feeling of something waking inside me before his arrival. Oh God. It had been real all along. Marcy snapped completely after that. You're lying. Her scream echoed through the hall violently. She's nothing. A servant. Accursed. Careful. Damon's voice dropped lower this time. The warning inside it felt lethal. Marcy froze immediately. Not because of the words. Because every wolf in the room sensed Damon's control slipping. And Alpha Damon losing control was the kind of thing packs feared for generations afterward. I stepped backward instinctively. Mate. The word poisoned every thought in my head now. No. No, no, no. This could not be happening. Mates were sacred among wolves. Protective. Trusted. Safe. Nothing about my life had ever been safe. And nothing about Damon felt gentle enough to trust. Because beneath all that control, I sensed violence. Massive violence. The kind hidden behind chains and discipline. I knew monsters when I saw them. I recognized one standing in front of me. Because part of me was becoming one too. I reject it. The words left my mouth before fear could stop them. Shock rolled through the hall instantly. Damon went completely still. The wolf inside me reacted violently. Pain shot through my chest hard enough to make me gasp. Mine. Angrier now. I ignored it. I don't want this, I whispered. Lie. Partially. That made it worse. Because my body betrayed me every time Damon looked at me. Heat. Recognition. Need. But fear screamed louder. I spent years trapped under the control of cruel people. I would not chain myself to another dangerous alpha willingly. Especially one capable of tearing entire rooms apart when angered. Damon watched me silently for several long seconds. Then finally, he nodded once. Not angry. Not surprised. Almost like he expected rejection. That changes nothing. I hated how calm he sounded. How can you say that? I snapped suddenly. Emotion cracked through my voice harder than intended. You barely know me. Damon's expression darkened slightly. That's not true. The room faded around me again. Because something inside those words sounded painfully honest. I know what they did to you, he continued quietly. I know your wolf was suppressed. My breathing stopped. I know you were tortured instead of trained. More silence. Then softer. And I know you're terrified of yourself now. That one hit hardest. Because nobody inside Bloodcrest ever cared enough to notice fear beneath my anger. Only Damon did. And somehow, that frightened me more than hatred ever could. The wolf inside me calmed slightly hearing his voice. That terrified me too. Because I did not trust peace that came this easily around dangerous men. Then Damon said something worse. I'm losing control too. The confession stunned the room. Even his own warriors shifted uneasily. Alpha Damon looked toward me slowly. The closer I get to you. His jaw tightened hard enough to visibly strain. The harder it becomes. I suddenly remembered the dinner. His reaction to my blood. The gold flash inside his eyes. The hunger. Oh God. This bond was affecting him too. That realization should have comforted me. Instead, it made him even more dangerous. Because powerful wolves become unpredictable when instinct overwhelms reason. And Alpha Daemon was already feared before this. Now I wasn't sure Bloodcrest could survive him if control finally broke completely. The meeting ended shortly afterward. Not peacefully. Nothing about Bloodcrest felt peaceful anymore. Marcy stormed from the hall shaking with rage. Alpha Edward looked ready for war. The Dark Howlers became more protective around Daemon immediately. And me? I felt trapped inside my own skin. Because every time Daemon came near me, the wolf inside me moved closer to the surface. That night I couldn't breathe inside my room. The walls felt too tight. The castle too loud. So I wandered the upper halls after midnight hoping cold air would calm the chaos inside me. Instead, I smelled Daemon before seeing him. Pine. Smoke. Rain. My pulse reacted instantly. I followed the scent without thinking. Big mistake. Because minutes later, I stood outside his chambers. The door stood partially open. Light spilled softly into the dark hallway. I should have walked away immediately. Instead, I heard metal clinking softly inside. Chains. My stomach tightened. Slowly, carefully, I looked through the doorway. And froze. Heavy steel chains lined the walls inside Daemon's room. Massive ones. Thick enough to restrain something enormous. Deep claw marks scarred the stone around them. Fresh claw marks. Not old. Not abandoned. Fresh. The realization stopped my breathing instantly. Moonlight spilled through Daemon's chamber windows in pale silver lines, illuminating chains thick enough to restrain monsters. Some hung from iron bolts drilled directly into stone walls. Others had been snapped apart. Not unlocked. Broken. Violently. I stared at them while cold fear spread slowly through my chest. Because suddenly, everything about Daemon made terrifying sense. The control. The restraint. The way his warriors watched him constantly during dinner. The hunger in his eyes after smelling my blood. Alpha Daemon was not afraid of other monsters. He was afraid of himself. A soft creak behind me nearly stopped my heart. I turned too quickly. Daemon stood at the end of the hallway watching me silently. No footsteps. No warning. Just suddenly there. The moonlight made him look less human somehow. Taller. Darker. Dangerous in ways difficult to explain aloud. For several long seconds neither of us spoke. Then his eyes shifted toward the open chamber door behind me. "You shouldn't be here," he said quietly. My pulse stumbled instantly. I should leave. Instead, I looked back toward the chains again. "Why do you need those?" Silence. Heavy silence. Daemon's jaw tightened slightly. Then he answered. "To survive the full moon." Fear crawled through me slowly. Not because of the chains. Because of how honestly he said it. I looked at him again carefully. And for the first time since meeting him, I saw exhaustion beneath the control. Deep exhaustion. Like fighting himself had become a lifelong war. That realization softened something inside me before I could stop it. Dangerous mistake. Because sympathy makes predators easier to trust. And trusting dangerous people gets you destroyed. Still, I could not stop staring at those claw marks. "They can't hold you anymore," I whispered. Daemon did not answer immediately. That silence became answer enough. The wolf inside me reacted strangely around him now. Not calm. Alert. Interested. Like it recognized another creature barely holding itself together. Then Damon stepped closer slowly. Your wolf is changing faster than expected. The words dragged my attention away from the chains instantly. What does that mean? Damon studied me carefully before answering. It means Bloodcrest didn't just suppress your wolf. His voice lowered slightly. They tortured it into adapting. Cold spread through my body. No. No, no, no. I shook my head immediately. That's impossible. It survived things that should have killed it, Damon continued quietly. Pain. Suppression rituals. Physical abuse. Every word hurt worse than the last. And instead of weakening, his eyes darkened slightly. It evolved. The hallway suddenly felt colder. I remembered the prison chamber. The broken chains. The missing guards. The hunger. Fear wrapped around my throat instantly. What am I becoming? The question came out smaller than intended. Damon looked at me for a very long time before answering. Something Alpha Edward fears more than death. The words echoed through me painfully. Because deep down, I already suspected that. The realization settled harder over the next few days. Bloodcrest no longer treated me like a servant. Now they treated me like a loaded weapon. Warriors followed me through hallways. Servants avoided eye contact entirely. Even elders stopped speaking whenever I entered rooms. Fear ruled the castle now. Not just fear of me. Fear of what I represented. A secret no longer fully hidden. And Alpha Edward was unraveling faster than anyone realized. I sensed it constantly. His emotions became sharper every day. Paranoia. Panic. Anger. Not toward Damon. Toward me. Like my existence itself threatened to destroy everything he spent years building. One afternoon, I overheard him arguing with Elder Rowan inside the Western Council chamber. You should have killed her as a child, Rowan whispered harshly. My breathing stopped outside the door. Alpha Edward answered immediately. I tried. The world tilted beneath me. I pressed closer to the wall instinctively. The suppression should have destroyed the bloodline completely, Edward snapped. No wolf survives rituals that young. Bloodline. That word again. She inherited too much from her mother, Rowan muttered. Mother. My chest tightened painfully. Nobody inside Bloodcrest ever spoke about her. Ever. I barely remembered her face. Only warmth. A song. Silver eyes. Then nothing. Her mother nearly destroyed the Northern Territories once, Edward continued coldly. If Nyra reaches full strength. She's stronger already, Rowan interrupted. Silence. Heavy silence. Then Rowan whispered the sentence that changed everything. The torture made her wolf stronger than her mother's. My pulse stopped. No. That could not be real. Inside the chamber, Alpha Edward sounded genuinely shaken now. You don't know that. I do. Rowan's voice dropped lower. Because ancient bloodlines survive through suffering. A terrible memory flashed through my head instantly. Every punishment. Every beating. Every humiliation. The coal. The burns. The starvation. Oh God. They didn't just hurt me. They forged me. The wolf inside my chest stirred violently at that realization. Not weak. Not broken. Forged. Suddenly I understood why Alpha Edward feared me now. Not because I survived. Because I survived stronger. That night the memories returned harder than ever before. Not dreams. Truth. Fragments of my childhood surfaced piece by piece. A woman screaming while warriors dragged her across snow. Silver eyes glowing beneath moonlight. Alpha Edward shouting orders. Marcy crying somewhere nearby. Then blood. So much blood. I woke gasping inside darkness while tears burned down my face. Because for the first time, I realized Marcy was never born cruel entirely on her own. She was shaped too. Manipulated. Raised beside fear. Fed stories about cursed bloodlines and dangerous wolves until hatred became instinct. Alpha Edward created both of us. One daughter raised to fear power. Another raised to survive pain. And now, both monsters stood inside the same castle. The next morning Damon confirmed my worst fear. We stood alone inside the abandoned training grounds before sunrise while snow drifted across broken stone. He watched me carefully. Too carefully. You're getting stronger. I looked away immediately. I don't want this. That doesn't matter anymore. The bluntness hurt. Damon stepped closer slowly. Your senses sharpen daily. Your healing accelerates every transformation cycle. The wolf inside me reacted instantly hearing him speak about it aloud. Alive. Alert. And your dominance response is growing. I frowned slightly. What does that mean? Damon's expression hardened. It means weaker wolves already instinctively fear you. Cold fear spread through me immediately. No. No, no, no. That was impossible. Damon continued anyway. You nearly overpowered Marcy without shifting fully. The memory hit hard. Her throat beneath my hand. The satisfaction. The terrifying satisfaction. I wrapped my arms around myself instantly. I don't want to hurt people. The confession sounded fragile. Honest. Damon looked at me for a long moment. That fear is the only reason you still haven't. The words settled heavily between us. Then came the worst part. Damon's voice lowered further. If your wolf fully matures. He stopped speaking briefly. Like even he disliked the thought. You may become stronger than every alpha alive. The world went silent. Snow drifted through the empty training grounds softly while my heartbeat thundered inside my ears. Stronger than every alpha alive. No. I was a servant. An orphan. A girl beaten half to death for most of her life. Not some ancient monster capable of terrifying alphas. But deep down, the wolf liked hearing it. That terrified me most of all. Because power becomes seductive after a lifetime of helplessness. And somewhere beneath my fear, rage had started enjoying the idea of never being powerless again. By nightfall, Bloodcrest reached its breaking point. Alpha Edward summoned the entire pack to the Grand Hall once more. This time the atmosphere felt different. Not tense. Final. Warriors lined every wall armed heavily. Elders stood silently near the throne platform. Marcy watched from beside her father with cold satisfaction burning behind her eyes. And Damon. Damon looked ready for violence. I sensed it instantly. His control sat dangerously thin tonight. Like one wrong move would tear the room apart. Alpha Edward rose slowly from his throne. The entire hall fell silent. Then he looked directly at me. Not fear anymore. Decision. She cannot be contained. My stomach tightened immediately. She has become a threat to Bloodcrest. No one argued. No one moved. Because everyone already knew what came next. Alpha Edward's voice echoed through the hall like a death sentence. Nyra will be executed before the next moonrise. The words echoed through Bloodcrest like a funeral bell. No one reacted immediately. No gasps. No protests. Just silence. Because deep down, everyone already knew this story could only end one of two ways. Either I died, or the monster they created finally stopped kneeling. I stood at the center of the grand hall surrounded by armed warriors while torchlight flickered across stone walls stained by generations of blood and power. For years, I cleaned those floors. For years, I lowered my head while monsters sat on thrones pretending to be civilized. Now those same monsters looked at me with fear. And somehow, that hurt more than the beatings ever did. Alpha Edward remained standing above everyone else, rigid inside ceremonial black armor trimmed with silver wolf markings. Not a father. Not a protector. An executioner. Princess Marcy stood beside him trembling slightly despite how hard she tried hiding it. Not from sadness. Relief. Because after years of torture, she believed she finally won. I should have hated her completely. Instead, I pitied her. That confused me more than anger. Because Marcy never understood what Alpha Edward truly turned her into. He fed her fear until cruelty became survival. He taught her power mattered more than kindness. And now she stood trapped inside the same cage he built for me years ago. The difference was this. My cage broke first. Alpha Daemon moved before anyone else spoke. You can't execute her. His voice rolled through the hall heavily enough that several warriors instinctively lowered their eyes. Alpha Edward's expression hardened instantly. She killed members of this pack. No bodies were found. Blood was. Daemon stepped forward slowly. And whose fault is that? The temperature inside the hall seemed to drop immediately. Because everyone knew exactly what he meant. The torture. The suppression. The lies. Bloodcrest broke the wolf inside me until survival itself became violent. Alpha Edward's jaw tightened. She is unstable. Daemon's eyes darkened. You made her unstable. The room erupted into arguments instantly afterward. Elders shouting. Warriors stepping forward. Dark howlers moving protectively around Daemon. But beneath all that noise, I heard something worse. The wolf. Restless. Hungry. Awake. It hated the fear inside the room. Hated the chains. Hated the weakness. And every second Bloodcrest discussed my death like I was an animal waiting for slaughter. The wolf pushed harder against my skin. Leave. Kill. Run. The thoughts came faster now. More violent. I squeezed my eyes shut trying to breathe through the pressure building beneath my ribs. Then came the sound. A bell. Deep. Heavy. The execution bell. Every conversation stopped immediately. Alpha Edward raised one hand toward the hall doors. Prepare the ceremonial grounds. Cold spread through my chest instantly. No. No, no, no. This was really happening. The guards approached me cautiously now, carrying silver chains covered in ancient runes. Suppressors. I recognized them from childhood memories. Pain flashed behind my eyes immediately. Hands pinning me down. My mother screaming. Blood on snow. I stumbled backward. The wolf reacted instantly. A growl escaped my throat before I realized it happened. Low. Dangerous. Not human. The guards froze. Daemon moved closer immediately. Don't chain her. Nobody listened. The first guard reached toward my wrist. Big mistake. The moment silver touched my skin, agony exploded through my body. I screamed. Not from fear. From rage. Pure violent rage. The wolf slammed against my mind so hard my vision blurred black around the edges. And suddenly, every heartbeat inside the hall became deafening. Every scent sharpened violently. Fear. Sweat. Blood beneath skin. I could smell it all. The chains tightened. Another scream tore from my throat. Then came the cracking. One bone. Then another. Gasps erupted across the hall. The guards stumbled backward instantly. My spine arched violently while heat exploded beneath my skin like fire trapped inside bone. No, Alpha, Edward whispered. Too late. The full moon rose behind the castle windows. And the wolf finally stopped asking permission to wake. I collapsed hard onto the stone floor while my body began changing completely. Not partial shifts anymore. Not claws. Not eyes. Everything. Bones cracked loudly enough to echo through the hall. My fingers twisted violently against the floor. Claws burst through skin. The screams around me sounded distant now. Muted beneath the roaring inside my skull. The wolf surged upward fully for the first time in my life. And suddenly, I remembered everything. My mother running through forests beneath moonlight. Ancient wolves bowing their heads as she passed. Alpha Edward hunting her. Bloodcrest warriors surrounding her body in snow. Then me. A child screaming while suppression marks burned into my skin. The wolf roared. The entire castle shook. Warriors staggered backward in panic. Some dropped their weapons completely. Because this was no ordinary transformation. The air itself changed. Heavy. Ancient. Terrifying. I barely saw my own body clearly anymore. Only fragments through pain and moonlight. Silver-white fur spreading beneath torn skin. Massive claws gouging stone effortlessly. Golden eyes reflecting torchfire across the hall. And power. So much power. The kind Bloodcrest feared enough to torture children over. Marcy screamed first. Not from injury. Recognition. Because finally, she understood the truth. The orphan servant she spent years breaking was never weak. Never cursed. Never lesser. I was something Bloodcrest tried desperately to bury alive. And now, it stood up. Alpha Edward backed away slowly. For the first time in my life. The Alpha looked afraid of me. Truly afraid. That realization nearly destroyed what little humanity I still held on to. Because after years of helplessness, fear felt addictive. The wolf loved it. Loved watching warriors retreat. Loved smelling panic spread through Bloodcrest like blood and water. I took one step forward. The stone cracked beneath my claws instantly. Several guards raised weapons. Damon stopped them with one look. Then something happened nobody inside Bloodcrest would ever forget. Alpha Damon, the most feared alpha in North America, slowly lowered himself to one knee before me. The entire hall froze. Dark Howler warriors bowed their heads instantly afterward. Not submission. Recognition. Alpha recognizing something older than himself. Stronger. Marcy looked shattered. No. She whispered weakly. Alpha Edward looked worse. Because finally, he understood what his cruelty created. Not a servant. Not a rogue. Not even an alpha. Something beyond it. The wolf inside me stared down at Damon while moonlight poured across the ruined hall. Mine. The voice sounded calmer now. Certain. Ancient. But before I could move toward Damon, before rage fully consumed what remained of me, something else reached me. A scent. My entire body froze instantly. Wrong. Old. Powerful enough to make even Damon's heartbeat change. Slowly. I turned toward the castle windows facing the forest. Dark trees stretched endlessly beyond Bloodcrest territory beneath silver moonlight. And somewhere deep within those woods, something watched me. Another wolf. No. Not just another wolf. Older. Far older. The scent carried death and winter and blood older than kingdoms. The wolf inside me reacted instantly. Not with rage. With caution. That terrified me more than anything. Because until that moment, I thought nothing alive could frighten what lived inside me. Then the howl came. Deep. Massive. Ancient enough to shake the mountains themselves. Every wolf inside Bloodcrest went still. Even Damon. And deep in my chest, the wolf finally understood the truth. Alpha Damon was never the real danger. He was only the beginning. I thought Alpha Damon was the monster hunting me. I was wrong. Would you have forgiven the pack after everything they did? And did you notice the warning hidden in the healer's story?